Story 1. My dad cheated on my mom with my teacher. What do I do now? So, at the beginning of December, my mom told me that my dad was having an affair, and the woman is a teacher at my school. To preface this, she isn't my teacher, but she was my brother's before he graduated. Even though she wasn't my teacher, I connected with her on a very deep and personal level, to the point that she was like my therapist, in the sense I told her my problems and asked for adult advice. She's an arts teacher, and I was/am in a class that is intertwined in some things. I won't say what subject to at least keep some privacy. I will refer to her as A. Every year, these two types of classes go on a pretty big competition trip out of state. My freshman year was during COVID, so we didn't get to go, but my sophomore year, we did. Another thing to add is that my dad owns an apparel business, which he makes the school spirit for all the school in the district. Like I said, my brother was in A's class before they were making the apparel for the district. My dad would make small orders per the teacher's request. Because he was a parent of one of the kids in the class, he could get away with making small orders. Fast forward back to my sophomore year, A is a single mom with 2 teens and is working on a teacher's salary in a small town. My dad hired A so she could make some money on the side. Because it's a small business, she would have a flexible schedule to work while being a full-time teacher. This was where we started to grow close. She loved my long hair, so it started off with just offering to fix up my hair. Small talks grew into my gossiping to her, and then grew into both of us gossiping. I know now that may sound a bit unethical, but because I was a student, but we played it off because she wasn't actually her student. She became my friend. I could go over so many things, but that would be more than double the size of this post. Coming to the end of the year, we go on this trip. Both my parents with us, not as chaperones though. My mom noticed how caring my dad was with A, buying her lunch, getting snacks, doing tasks for her, etc. He wouldn't do this for my teacher though, which was why my mom got uncomfortable. He played it off and just being nice to his employee, and that it had to be hard leading the charge on the trip. Mom ignored it and didn't think about it anymore. Another thing is that my mom and her were friends, so during the time between my sophomore and junior year, my dad continued to have a questionable but normal relationship with A. My mom became insecure to the point where she asked to discuss this with Dad, but he blew it off. My mom ended up just thinking that she was making something out of nothing. Big mistake. Over time, Mom and A grew apart and their friendship fizzed out. She would still make conversation when she visited my dad while working. Another detail is that the business is ran in our basement of our home, and even did my hair for each homecoming and the 2 proms I've attended, and my mom was thankful for that. Nothing ever gave her proof that there was an affair going on other than overhearing questionable conversations or A saying things that my mom only told my dad. A side note to add, remember how I said she was like my therapist? Well, when my parents would fight, unrelated to her at the time, I would tell her how upset it made me. Or when I would get into arguments with either my mom or dad, I would tell her. She knew a lot about my personal life and issues. So how did my mom find out? My mom and dad are both originally from the same state, but had to move away for dad's job. One of my cousins was getting married, and mom and I went out of state for it over that weekend. Dad didn't really know the cousin well, and he had work, so he stayed home. When we got back, my mom got a text from the other neighbor and her friend, and told my mom that A had been at the house all day. Neighbor had said she would be uncomfortable if her husband and his employee were together the whole weekend, but Mom didn't know that she was there. She ended up buying an audio device and putting it in the basement for the next time we went up, Thanksgiving. My dad also didn't go up this time. This time it was for a personal reason that I won't include in this post, but it was a deep reason. When we got back, my mom retrieved the footage and had her proof. He was having an affair with her. To sum up what has happened, my mom confronted both of them. They both denied it, and she told them that she had her proof. She got nothing out of them, like how long/when it started. I got home and well, your dad and A have been effing in this house. I loved my mom's confidence when she confronted him in front of me. More things were said, but I did get to talk to my dad privately, and he wouldn't confirm or deny whether or not it was true. I told him what's happened has happened, but said that if I found out him and A were still seeing each other, that I would not want him in my life. I did get to listen to the tape after begging my mom because I still didn't know if I could believe what she was saying wasn't over-exaggerated. The most I'll say is that it was a bad intercourse tape. My mom told my principal about it and that she wanted A to stay far away from me at school and any school event. As of now, I'm having a normal relationship with him. He's still my dad, and I want him while I transition into the next chapter of my life, even if I could never forgive him for hurting my mom again. But what do I say to A? She doesn't deserve to get off scot-free. She listened to all my problems as well, and the pain I was feeling with my parents while she was sleeping with my dad the whole time. That she was a huge reason they were fighting, whether or not we knew it at the time. If I confront her, what do I say? I won't forgive her, but I want her side. I'm at a crossroad and I just don't know what to do next. Again, sorry for the length of this story and any spelling/grammar mistakes, but if you made it this far, thank you for listening and helping. I mean, I would say first off, I just wouldn't confront her. I would just be like, you know what? I don't really want to talk with you. What you were doing was unethical and uncool, and it caused turmoil in my family, and we're trying to move past that, and so, bye. Like that, and I would only do that if she confronted you first. Otherwise, it's like, yeah, no, you screwed up, and if you valued this connection, then, well, you're the one who lost it. And if you truly feel like you need to, I would just let her know how it made you feel and how you're going to proceed, and leave it at that, just keep it very simple and to the point. I wouldn't try and, throw accusations or what she should do or anything like that, she's got to figure that out on her own. Yeah. Otherwise, the one thing that caught me in this story is that your parents were from out of state, but you had to move for your dad's job, but your dad's job is something he does in his basement. I don't know. I think we're just missing a piece of information there, but for some reason that's sticking with me to the point, why do you have to move for a job he just does out of his home that sounds like he could do anywhere? I don't know. Probably just, like I said, probably just missing information, but I can't get over it. Story 2. My daughter's ex-stepdad wants to make amends with her. I'll try and make this as short as possible since I don't like thinking about my situation a lot. If I leave anything out, I'm sorry. In November of 2019, I, 42 male, was playing a game with my wife, 42 female, and our kids, 9 and 4 male, when I got a knock on my door. When I opened, there were 2 officers and a shy girl who I will call Jane, now 19 female. I let them in, and the cops explained that Jane was my biological daughter. I had no idea of this, but they brought me a DNA test. Then it all made sense. For some backstory, I had a one-night stand 20 years ago with a random woman I met at a party. The woman was actually married, and her husband, who I'll call Steve, found out Jane wasn't his after Jane took a 23andMe test as a small gift from one of her friends. When Steve found out about this, he immediately blew up at Jane and the mom and kicked them both out of the house. During the divorce process, he told Jane that she was a lie. He would never be his daughter ever again. He never wants to see her ever again. Jane cried and begged for him because she's only ever known him as her father, but Steve took his name off the birth certificate and went no contact. When I asked why she isn't staying with her biological mom, they told me that the mom fell into a depression and started taking drugs. She became verbally and physically abusive until an accident a week ago that caused her to be taken away from Child Protective Services. I agreed to let her in, and Jane brought her bags in the house. This was obviously very unstable, as for a while Jane was shy around us. She didn't talk a lot. My wife and I were welcoming to her as much as we could. Our oldest son Alex immediately started loving Jane and tried to spend time with him. He always wanted a sister and spent a lot of time with Jane. Our younger son Tony was a newborn when she arrived, so he just grew up with her and loved her naturally. Over time, Jane started becoming more open with us. We got closer, and in December 2020, when the family was having a movie night, Jane kissed me on the cheek and said, "I love you, Dad." We all cried, except me, LOL, of happiness. My daughter is now a beautiful 19-year-old lady in college, and it's like we already raised her for the 19 years of her life. Now to the problem. I got a random message a week ago from someone I didn't recognize. When I opened it, I realized that Steve had sent the message. It was pretty long, so I'll just reword it here. Hello, my name. I want to talk to you about Jane. When I found out she wasn't mine, my world shattered. I kicked her out because I couldn't bear to see her after the love of my life had betrayed me in such a devastating way. I know you had no fault in this, but it still hurts. Over the last year, I've realized my daughter will always be my daughter, and nothing can change that. I want to reach out to you so I can apologize to her. Please let me see her again. At first, I wanted to tell Jane, but then I remember a conversation about 7 months ago. My oldest son asked about Jane's other father, Steve, and I overheard Jane say something like, "Oh, you mean ex-father? He doesn't realize the damage he had done to me, and it took so long to recover." I have confided in only my wife about this, and she told me to just leave the message be and ignore it. So now I'm stuck with 3 outcomes. Tell Jane about the message and raise hellfire again. Respond to it myself and see how it goes. Just ignore the message and let our life continue as normal. I'm not completely sure what to do. Edit. Forgot to mention that my daughter still lives at home since the college isn't far away and she wants to save money. Just in case that's important. Also, she was more open to us about Steve as time went on, and she claims to have no love or respect for him anymore. Yeah, but I think part of that comes from, just her own kind of defense mechanism. Like, yeah, I don't have love or respect for him because of the way he kicked me out, and it hurts too much to have that love and respect. And not dismissing what Steve did. His reaction was absolutely wrong. He shouldn't have reacted that way no matter how hurt he was, but it does sound like he realizes his mistake and wants to try and make amends, and no matter what you may think, he is, in part, her father. Maybe not biologically, but he raised her. He was a huge part of her life. They have a ton of memories together. And that isn't to say that she needs to forgive him for the very hurtful thing that he said, but I do think that as much as it might hurt her to have to figure that out, it is her choice to make and not yours. Especially, she's an adult. You need to let her know this happened, and she gets to decide how she wants to proceed forward with that. And I very firmly believe that. Story 3. Am I the a-hole for kicking out my boyfriend's ex? I, 36 female, and my boyfriend, 42 male, have been together for 7 years. We've both been married and divorced before and like to be financially independent of each other and keep things pretty separate. What's mine is mine, and what's his is his. I am CF and have worked up in my field and am comfortable. My boyfriend doesn't earn what I do. He pays a lot of child support to and contributes, as he should, to all of his 5 kids' after-school activities. So our deal between us is, I pay all of our household bills, loans, food, and he looks after his kids and contributes what he can to our household. 5 years ago, I bought a home for us, and I even went as far as buying a home that would suit his kids so they would feel comfortable when they came and stayed with us. This caused a lot of drama. His ex felt that I was trying to buy the children, and in her words, she only got the house to rub in how much better she thinks she is. I've always kept my distance from his ex. It was a messy divorce for them, which she blamed on me, even though I didn't meet my partner until they'd been separated for nearly a year. She has a history of DV to him, and my presence makes it worse. 18 months ago, I got a great job opportunity, which means we would need to relocate 12 hours away from our current home. After discussions between boyfriend and I and my boyfriend and his ex, we agreed that we would make the move for my job and would rent my house to his ex for an incredible discounted rate with the agreement that this would be for 2 years. Remember, my work circumstances have changed and we have relocated back to our hometown again. My boyfriend and I have found a small rental in the meantime, but since coming home, his ex has become more aggressive, particularly with me. She had told my partner the children have always hated me and were only nice because of him, but don't ever want to see me again. She's accused me of trying to buy the kids' love, making her look like a bad mother, and for basically being the root of all evil. Which is whatever to me. I do love the kids in my own way, but would hate to make them choose or feel uncomfortable by being around me. So we're making sure that my boyfriend spends as much time as possible with the kids and attends any sports or school events without me, and when I go away from work, they come to our house. I've suggested therapy or counseling, but the ex won't hear it, making it sound like I'm calling her bad mother for suggesting it. The 2 years is ending, and I want my house back. Basically, the ex is saying if I'm rich enough to pay for a rental and pay a mortgage, now I should let her and the kids stay in the house, and since the kids now hate me, it would be a waste of space for just my boyfriend and I. And this situation is also leading to kids telling my partner that they hate me even more for kicking them and their mother out of their home. My boyfriend is very torn. He just wants his kids safe and happy. Okay, I do not like what the ex is doing in this situation, because when people get divorced or when they're separated, never together, whatever, and parents start talking bad about their ex and their ex's partner to the kids, that sucks for the kids. And I say this as someone who had to deal with a very small amount of that. Not that much, but every time that, my mom would talk bad about my dad or stepmom, or my dad or stepmom would talk bad about, my mom or stepdad or whatever, that made me feel so gross and conflicted, and I hated it so much. And it's still something, as I think about it, just viscerally makes me so unhappy and uncomfortable. And they really weren't bad about it. I'm not trying to talk bad about any of my parents. I think they were very reserved about that stuff and were generally incredibly supportive of the other's parenting styles. But on occasion, when things maybe got, a little bit heated or whatever, and that stuff was, told to me, and when parents do that, it's so bad for the kids, and it's so bad for all relationships. It just is a terrible thing to be doing, and to be telling someone my kids hate you, blah, 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 the kids are hearing that, and the kids are trying to be respectful of their mom and be yeah, mom hates this person, so we have to hate this person. And you're just poisoning that relationship. The relationship between, the person who wrote this and the dad, between the person who wrote this and the dad's kids. You're just poisoning the well. It's terrible to do. Please don't do that stuff whenever you can, parents. It sucks. Story 4. Today, I effed up by knocking myself out to impress a girl. It's a small heads up, but this wasn't today, but back in 1993, and another post I just read reminded me of this life event. Still brings great shame. I will also apologize because I'm physically disabled and using voice recognition software, so my formatting might be a bit off. To set the scene, I was in a wheelchair and have been my entire life. This, however, did not stop me from having a hormone-driven brain that was after the cutest girl in my 6th grade class. I was the shy kid who had a lot of trouble making friends, and my best friend at the time tried to warn me that there was no way on earth this girl would ever give me the light of even a conversation. Hormone-driven me did not want to believe this fact. Fast forward to mid-year, and we were put together to work on an English project. Ashley, who literally every guy in class wanted the attention of, seemed less than thrilled to be partnered up with and simply faced socially awkward me until she figured out I was really smart. We had to work together every day for a week on this project. I don't remember the details of the assignment, but the thought of spending about 4 hours with her complete attention had me justifiably excited. We get to the end and we have to present our project, and before we do, she turns to me and says, "Scott, you're not what I expected. This was a lot of fun. Thank you for your help." Now, if I had even half a clue, this would have been the realization that she was just being kind. My brain, however, turned this into an opportunity to be Romeo on wheels. That weekend, I invited my friends over and composed a song in her honor. Never mind the fact that I cannot play instruments or sing. I thought this was the greatest idea that I'd ever had. Once again, my friend tried to convince me that I was completely delusional, but fear not, reader, I thought I had everything under control. Monday comes, and I've decided that gym class, which was co-ed, would be the perfect place for me to serenade her. My limited mental capacity also convinced me that it would be a good idea to do this in front of everyone to show that I was serious about being the man of her dreams. Here's where the F-up comes in. First of all, I sounded like a cat that just got its tail caught under a rocking chair. Second of all 40 kids in the room stopped to listen to my caterwauling. Ashley, on the other hand, was hanging out with her friends and began to laugh uproariously at my attempts to be a teenage pop sensation. Now, you would think that the latter would get me to stop midstream and wheelchair away in shame, as I have forgotten to mention earlier in the post I have been in a wheelchair all of my life, and so dealing with disability awkwardness on top of teenage awkwardness was fantastically, awkward. I thought that it would be a brilliant idea to pop a wheelie at the end of my serenade. I neglected to remember that we had gone to the park over the weekend and I had taken my anti-tip bars off the chair. This means that when I popped my wheelie, I flipped the entire chair over, managing to knock myself unconscious on the gym floor, giving myself a concussion in the process. The next thing I recall, I was staring up at my gym teacher's shorts while the school nurse was bringing you back with smelling salts, and everyone was standing around looking at me. This was unfortunate for 3 reasons. Firstly, my gym teacher wasn't wearing any undergarments. Secondly, I had a concussion and my head hurt like hell. And thirdly, this became the talk of my middle school and high school career for the next several years. I mean, is it really middle school if you don't do something just awful and embarrassing for yourself at least once? I mean, we all have something, and they all fall, somewhere on the scale of, mildly embarrassing to terribly embarrassing. I would at the very least say, at least you hurt yourself at the end. I feel like that gets you some sympathy points, so people don't want to make fun of you too bad because you did get hurt. I think if you had popped the wheelie and just held it, it might have been more embarrassing in the long run, so frankly, that concussion may have been just a small gift. Story 5, entitled On Demands I Take Out My Piercings. A few days ago, my family met at my great-grandparents' house for a family Christmas celebration. My great-aunt, Grandma's sister, was there with her grandson, his wife, and their child. This particular aunt is always causing drama in the family. We'll call her R. My dad took me to get my septum pierced for my 18th birthday early in 2023, so I've had it pierced for a while. I've only had the plain silver horseshoe and got back when it was first pierced for a while, but I recently got a new horseshoe piercing decorated with a bee on one end and a honeycomb on the other. It stands out more than the other one, so I guess she finally noticed it during our celebration. I was sitting on the stairs with my brother, as always. R was sitting on the floor across from the stairs with her great-granddaughter S and 2 of my younger cousins. She stared at me for a while, which I assume was because of my hair, because she's never liked the fact that I shaved the sides and got an undercut. Instead, she asked me if I had my septum pierced. I said I did, and she simply asked, why? Before I could even answer her, the answer would have been something along the lines of, because I wanted to. She goes, they say that a woman gets her septum pierced so her husband can attach her to a leash and drag her around. She actually said that in front of the 3 younger girls in the room. My aunt and uncle, who were sitting on the couch off to my left, were shocked. Since none of us wanted to cause a scene, we kind of just laughed it off. I was a bit snappy and said, well, mine is a horseshoe, not a ring, so it doesn't matter. The topic was dropped for a while. Later, after we ate lunch, R cornered me in the bathroom after I washed my hands and demanded I take the piercing out because I was being a bad influence for poor S. S was too busy playing around in her new princess dress to notice anything anyone else was doing. So, that was the bull. I'm a very anxious person normally, but this bee of a lady had something against me and my dad basically my entire life, so I was sick of her crap. I told her to back off and stop judging me and my decision when she screwed up her own marriage so much that her ex doesn't like being referred to as her ex because it connects him to her. She gave me so many nasty looks the rest of the afternoon, but I didn't care. I'm already planning on getting more nose piercings, and her stupid ideals can't stop me. First off, good for you. You're an adult, you're allowed to make your own decisions and get your own piercings. You keep that in. Second off, if she said, that you were being a bad influence, the best result is to go, I suppose you don't want any more bad influences in her life because she has you for that. Or something along those lines. I didn't deliver it the best, but who's going to in that situation? I can't stand people like this. You know what? You're being a bad influence. If you truly believe that, then it's not other people's jobs to, keep the influences away from the kids. It's your job as a parent to teach the kids why you think that's bad. It's your job as a parent to handle that crap. And if you're putting it on other people, you're a bad parent. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.